of inconsequentiality, hoping to do their mating call of irrelevance. You know, the loons. Mean tweets, mean tweets. Yes, the lefties were out in full force today. Why? Because Donald Trump tweeted an old video of him wrestling Vince McMahon to the ground as part of his performance at WrestleMania from 2007. But someone had taken Vince McMahon's face and put the CNN logo in place of it. Now, this is a bit of an old meme. It's been used before, once with Ted Cruz's head. Did the media get upset about somebody instigating violence against Ted Cruz? No, not really. So this is the latest in the series of hysterical, I bet your adrenal glands can't take this for another 8 years, kind of hysteria coming in from the left. So, yeah, it's an old video. They put a logo on where Trump appears to be pretending to take down and pummel a CNN logo. Not exactly the Reichstag fire that helped get the Nazis cemented in power. Not really very violent. Take that! Logo Photoshop thing. Now, Trump on Twitter said this: the fake and fraudulent news media is working hard to convince Republicans and others I should not use social media. But remember, I won the 2016 election with interviews, speeches, and social media. I had to beat #fake news and did. We will continue to win. My use of social media is not presidential. It's modern day presidential. Make America great again. So this actually puts the mainstream media, the legacy media, the dino media, in the rather unenviable position of looking like they're the old guy whittling away with suspenders up to his nipples on a back porch, yelling at the kids to get their digits off his lawn. They're being schooled in how to communicate by a guy in his 70s. Now, let's put this a little bit in context. So Trump retweets an edited video that looks like he's pretending to pummel and take down CNN's logo. Oh my God. Kristallnacht! Let's have a look at how CNN has been doing. Now, this is just CNN. There are a bunch of other media outlets been doing as worse if not worse. But here we go. Months and months of comparing Trump to the literal second coming of Adolf Hitler. CNN also interviewed and portrayed the individual who rushed the stage to assault Trump as an activist, as a hero. They openly, on CNN, pondered Trump's assassination prior to Inauguration Day. Oh, I remember, they took a picture of Steve Bannon and put visual crosshairs on him. A whole lot less funny after that tragic baseball game. A CNN commentator was actually, this is one of the worst, pondering on air if Jared Kushner was, quote, maybe one of the people who has to die. Trump is Hitler, but very Jewish Jared Kushner, well, maybe he's just one of the people who has to die, according to the CNN commenter. Well, it seems a little bit more on the Hitler side of things coming from CNN than from Trump. They also, of course, published and retracted a fake Trump-Russia story and said, well, it just didn't go through the proper channels, when the reality was it was a giant lawsuit threat that caused them to, search under the dusty old couch in the green room and find, I don't know, a tiny dust bunny called Ethics that somebody had mislaid sometime in the 80s. Oh, yeah. You remember this. Cry Bully Kathy. They employed a woman, CNN, who held up a lifelike representation of Donald Trump's bloody, severed head. CNN also defended a play which featured the nightly realistic assassination of a character representing and dressed and with the hair like Donald Trump. CNN endangered world geopolitics by pushing this Russia hacked the narrative of my election narrative, conspiracy theory, and they did this, according to one of their guys, for ratings despite any clear or compelling evidence. CNN. How did they respond? Well, they said this: it is a sad day when the President of the United States encourages violence against reporters. Clearly, Sarah Huckabee Sanders lied when she said the President had never done so. Instead of preparing for his overseas trip, his first meeting with Vladimir Putin, dealing with North Korea and working on his healthcare bill, he's involved in juvenile behavior far below the dignity of his office. We will keep doing our jobs. He should start doing his. I don't know. It's just, it's just like, I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. I don't know. You want a guy to have the nuclear codes, to be like in charge of the most powerful army in the world, to be the leader of what remains of the free world, but not to be any kind of fighter, any kind of tough guy. I mean, Andrew Jackson, US president, had somewhere between 10 and 100 duels. Nobody knows exactly how many, but in my book, if you have more than 0, that makes you kind of a tough guy. Abraham Lincoln was actually once a real wrestler, not faking things at a WrestleMania event. CNN. See, you gotta have dignity, according to CNN. You know, unlike a network that has Elmo the children's puppet on to make the case for taking on more third world welfare recipients pretty much until the end of the line somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa. So you gotta have your dignity. You sure as heck don't want to be dealing with like Elmo the children's puppet, right? Talking to children's puppets. Nothing says dignity like that, right, Justin? Now, the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press said this: "We condemn the president's threat of physical violence against journalists. This tweet is beneath the office of the president. Sadly, it is not beneath this president." Ooh, snark, snark. You can just feel it in your spine because they don't. Passive-aggressive jellyfish. They just drive me crazy. Give me a shark I can punch any day. I mean, this group, did they condemn the endless race baiting that occurred off CNN, gender baiting, class baiting, and the Trump equals Hitler narrative, and the highly dangerous destabilization of Russia-American relations by the constant pushing that Russia hacked the election? Did they come out against that? But no, you see, a pretty funny meme. That's across the line, man. There's got to be a line. CNN host Brian Stelter said, "He's trying to build up news outlets that promote him while trying to tear down outlets which dare to challenge him. He's talking to his friends in the media, talking with friendly interviewers who won't ask him tough questions, while he's demeaning voices which criticize him. Is this president trying to impersonate Hugo Chavez, Recep Erdogan, Vladimir Putin? Because this is exactly the kind of language that leaders use when they're trying to undermine the press. Of course, the American press is much more free than reporters in places like Russia and Turkey and Venezuela. Are GOP leaders going to speak up on these attacks on the media? Boy, you want to see a group of people running from tough questions? You should see Jeffrey Zucker do the incredible Kenyan sprint dash from his place to a waiting limousine rather than talk to James O'Keefe, the chief of exposing fake news, or not returning phone calls when they're asked to comment on all of their reporters who call the Russian story mostly bullshit. What else? Nothing burger, all that kind of stuff. Boy, they're really fighting that old echo chamber, really want the tough questions. Well, they want to ask the tough questions. Don't want to be asked the tough questions. And it's kind of funny to me to see CNN complain that somebody else is in kind of a biased, confirmation bias echo chamber. Are you kidding me? James O'Keefe showed one of your producers, CNN, saying that 90% of his colleagues think Trump is insane. Echo chamber? Confirmation bias? You sell the soul of your country for money and power. You crucify American freedoms on a cross of lies. But Trump, you see, has a little bit of one-sidedness and confirmation bias around him. NBC's Meet the Press Chuck Todd said, "Saddest reactions I've received are those folks who mistake calls for decency in our discourse as some sort of evidence of bias." Ponder that. Ah, yes, media. All about decency, all about honesty, all about integrity. One of CNN's producers says that the journalism ethics are adorable, but basically completely inapplicable to CNN. Yeah, that's, you want a guy in charge of your medical show to have no respect for journalistic ethics at all. And they called that diversity. CNN White House reporter Jim Acosta said, "Reminder, the White House just said this a few days ago, that the president has never promoted or encouraged violence. Isn't pro wrestling fake?" Still more real than your guys reporting. CNN political analyst Carl Bernstein said, "It's not just anti-CNN, it's anti-freedom of the press. It's very disturbing. There's nothing lighthearted about it whatsoever." Hey, Carl, let me tell you something. Being disturbed is not an argument. It may be a confession of instability. It's not an argument. And you see, he's concerned, as so many people are concerned, that this goofy meme about Trump pretending to tackle CNN is somehow dangerous and instigating violence. You know, Russia hacked the election. Pretty dangerous, fam. The fact that the Russian narrative been described by CNN employees as a nothing burger, as mostly bullshit. You see, if you provoke tensions between nuclear powers, that can actually end up as a war, and a war that could end everyone and everything. That doesn't seem to disturb you very much. That doesn't disturb you at all. Not criticizing CNN for saying fake, dangerous, planet-ending narrative. But see, somebody pretending to take down your logo, oh my God, that's so dangerous and disturbing. Bill Kristol, okay, this guy's not got anything right lately, I guess except the amount of eclairs he's eating after dinner. He said, "The speed with which we are recapitulating the decline and fall of Rome is impressive. What took Rome centuries, we're achieving in months." Wait, you mean like the doubling of the debt under Obama? Yeah, that's a lot of debt. You know what else killed Rome? A lack of commitment to the ideals of the Republic because of mass immigration, diversity, and, promoting the destruction of the family through an endless welfare state. It's almost like Bill Kristol thinks like the 1965 Immigration Act and, the welfare state as a whole was just enacted this January. It goes back just a little further, Billy Boy, I got to tell you. You might want to study that history. It's very, very important. CNN, ABC, and Telemundo contributor Ana Navarro said, "It is an incitement to violence. He is going to get somebody killed in the media." So what they're saying is that if you show violent imagery or use violent analogies or metaphors or promote hatred against people, that gets people killed. And these are the same people, my friends, who just a couple of weeks ago were saying, well, it's only a play where the Trump simulacrum gets killed every night. It's just a play. It doesn't mean anything. Oh, the severed head of the President of the United States? It's just artistic expression. It's like a joke. It doesn't mean anything. But now the fact that somebody put a CNN logo on a joke attack of Trump's from 10 years ago, oh, that means something. Oh my God, do you guys have any idea how you look from the outside? Any idea? Probably not, because echoes. Gonna get somebody killed in the media. Wow, that's terrible. Because, by promoting race baiting, a lot of the mainstream media, it could be argued, got a lot of cops killed by people who felt that, Mike Brown was just gunned down, execution style, while he was begging for his life, and so on. Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman and all that kind of stuff. By all of this race baiting, people did end up shooting cops, and it could be said there's a line from one to the other. And think of all of the under-policing that's going on, right? Because people are concerned about the media. If they ever get into trouble with a minority, the media is going to just nail them to the wall and hang them out to dry. So I think it could be said a lot of people are getting killed. But you see, the big problem is a logo on a meme. It's sort of this hypocrisy. It's astonishing. I guess I'm still young enough to be surprised by it. It's like the New York Times reporters. They're all really mad and upset about getting fired. Right? The New York Times has promoted massive amounts of immigration and has covered up for illegal immigration, because it's basically Carla Slim's blog. And the New York Times, through their editorials, through their relentless immigration pushing agenda, they've got a lot of people fired in America, millions and millions of people fired. Now they're getting fired. They don't seem to like it very much. You see, when they were importing or advocating for the importation of lots of Mexicans, didn't really affect the New York Times. But that act has discredited the New York Times in the eyes of many. Read Adios America by Ann Coulter and Never Sleep Again. And so they got a lot of people fired in America. A lot of blacks couldn't get work because they were competing with these endless waves of migrants and immigrants and you name it, right? Illegal and illegal, all covered up and advocated for by the New York Times. So what happened is the New York Times lost all their credibility, and now people are coming to other places to get their news, and now the New York Times people are getting fired. You know, kind of sucks when there's this karmic blowback, doesn't it? Actually, doesn't really at all. Nancy Pelosi shook herself awake to say, violence and violence imagery to bully the press must be rejected. This July 4th celebrate freedom of the press, guardians to our democracy. Now, interesting note there. See? Violence and violent imagery to bully the press must be rejected. To bully the press. Interesting. Why not just in general, Nancy? Why not say those on the left? Why not disavow the endless bloody history of leftist political violence as a whole, or just political violence as a whole? Why is it just against the press? I mean, of course, there should not be violence against the press, but there's violence against lots of non-leftists that seems to go rather unremarked upon by the press. Congressman Adam Schiff said, "Where will his downward spiral take us? I don't know, perhaps to the quagmire pea soup jellyfish brain of rhetorical questions. Maybe?" Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse said, "There's an important distinction to draw between bad stories or crappy coverage and the right that citizens have to argue about that and complain about that and trying to weaponize distrust. The First Amendment is the beating heart of the American experiment, and you don't get to separate the freedoms that are in there. While there are a whole bunch of particular journalists who should be called out for particular stories that aren't good enough, it is not helpful to call the press the enemy of the American people." See, it's just not helpful. Not helpful to who, Ben? Not helpful to who? What if the press is the enemy of the American people? Is it helpful to reality to point that out? If they have like a relentless globalist, leftist, no borders, mass immigration agenda that can completely undermine the entire small government centralized purpose and focus of the entire republic, importing endless waves of people who vote for larger and larger government. If the American people want a smaller government, a government that can even remotely sustain itself financially, and if the mainstream media is calling for social and political situations which destroy that goal, I don't know who they are the enemy of, if not the American people. Now, the left is notoriously humorless. I mean, they have this kind of cutting, bitchy, biting humor when it comes to talking about the right, but they're very humorless about themselves. What should CNN have done? Well, there's a video online, you can find it. Steve Austin, the wrestler, uses the legendary Stone Cold Stunner on Donald Trump. This was taken at WrestleMania 23. Well, CNN should just take their logo and put it on Steve Austin's head as he delivers this kick to Trump. But of course, there are such humorless tweaks that they can only whine about somehow violence, violence, violence. Now, I didn't notice the left-wing media, the mainstream media, getting too upset with Obama. See, Obama put a record number of reporters' sources in jail using the Espionage Act of 1917. See, here's a little history slice. Between 1917 and 2009, only one person was convicted under the Espionage Act for leaking to a news organization. Now, Obama, who once swore that he was going to protect whistleblowers when in office, well, during the course of his administration, the Department of Justice brought charges against 8 people, accusing them of leaking to the media. Now, this is a little interesting dip into history. One guy was accused of taking a few classified documents home. Can you imagine a situation where classified documents end up in your house? Petraeus and Hillary Clinton. Now, what's interesting is that as the case proceeded, the prosecution against this guy said, well, it doesn't matter why he took the documents home. It doesn't matter whether his actions actually harmed national security. Intent doesn't matter at all. Intent doesn't matter at all. Maybe it was a nut job. In persecuting this guy, the prosecution wrote this: the only intent required under the statute is that the defendant retained the documents willfully, i.e., in violation of a known legal duty. Whatever intent or belief that the defendant had for the potential use of those documents is irrelevant. See, that's important. If the media were doing their job, they'd have looked that one up and said, oh, Hillary, things aren't looking good. And when Comey let her off the hook, said, I don't really understand that. Help me square this circle. Now, the guy who was being charged with all of this, he said, I didn't even know the documents were classified. And one of the documents was actually stamped unclassified. But the prosecution said, hey, man, you should have known that it was supposed to be classified. So they prosecuted someone saying intent doesn't matter for having documents in his house that were marked unclassified because apparently he was supposed to know that they were classified. So it could be said that mainstream media has not been doing their job with the most ruthless efficiency known to mankind. And just North Dakota prosecutors are persecuting Amy Goodman for reporting on a riot. And the media, they don't seem to have any idea, just outside the biosphere of intense Marxist self-reflection, they don't seem to really have any idea why they're so hated. Why they're so hated? Well, because they claim to be news, but they're propagandists. They claim to report on facts, but it's all a manipulation. And, I mean, people hate a bully. I mean, the media, it's a strong way to put it. I think that they've actually satanically misused their considerable power in society to promote an agenda against the will of the majority of Americans. That is not going to get you many fans. And I don't think people understand just how they're disliked, how much the media is disliked. Gianforte, right after he body slammed that Guardian reporter, his donations went up. I don't condone the body slamming, but this is an indication of just how much the media is hated. The media is a bully, and people hate bullies. There's really only one thing that people hate more than a bully. That's a cowardly bully, a crime bully. And CNN is a lot of things, but CNN is certainly not